What about day?
What's up, everyone? How's it going? It is early here in Seattle. The sun just came up and I am packing for a 2-week backpacking and photography trip into southeastern Oregon. So it should be fun down there, but before I leave, I wanted to drop you guys off a quick video detailing some of my thought processes when designing a workflow within Lightroom and Photoshop. So everybody's workflow is different. Everybody has different needs that they have when editing photos to stay creative or to organize their own photos. But these are just my specifics that I use for being creative and organizing my photography. So I'm going to go through my Lightroom and then my Photoshop. And it won't be a step-by-step on the exact techniques I use to set this up, but more of the idea process for how I designed it. So if you can grab 1 or 2 ideas out of this and maybe apply it to your own workflow, I think it'll be really helpful. So let's think about this. When you get home from a photography trip, you have a bunch of memory cards or a hard drive filled with a bunch of new photos. And on that memory card exist 2 things: images that you're going to throw away and images that you're going to process. So we need a way to organize them and make sure that that's clear and concise. So let's pretend I just imported a new memory card. When I import a new memory card, all the photos go to this first folder. And this is kind of the timeline of how things work for me within Lightroom. So the new image review folder. When I import videos, import photos and videos, I have a preset. It's called raw import. It just adds all my metadata, renames the file, removes the wide angle lens distortion and the sharpening, and then it adds a slight pre-sharpening for post-processing. And all it's going to do is it's going to add some metadata to add it to that new image review folder. So if I did that, I could just hit import and it would send all of my files to the new image review folder. So the key of the new image review folder is to kind of separate the files you haven't organized from the files you have organized. So I haven't organized these. So let's say I'm in the creative mood to organize photos. I can come into the new image review folder and I can either hit X to reject it. That means it'll go to the trash. I can hit 3. Now if I hit 3, it's going to send this file from the new image review folder to the ready to process folder. Now the ready to process folder just means I really like the image. It's going to eventually go to my portfolio. And we'll assess that here in a second. So hitting 3 means I really like the photo and I want to edit it later on. If I hit 2, it's going to go to the second pass review folder. So let's say I hit 2 right here. It's going to remove the file from this folder and send it to the second pass review folder. Now these are photos that I'm on the verge of not knowing if I like them or I don't like them, but I'll come back and assess them later. So if I'm in a non-creative mood, I just come in here to my new image review folder. You can see there's a lot of images in here right now. I just go through them and my goal is to have this at 0. But if I'm not in a creative post-processing mood, I just come in here and hit either X to trash, 2 to go to second pass review, or 3 to go to ready to process. It's as easy as that. Now, normally I'll find that when I'm doing this for 10 or 15 minutes, I get in the mood to edit photos. So if I want to edit photos, I'm not in the mood, I come into the new image review folder and that normally puts me in the mood to get some creative work done. So the second pass review, same thing. If I'm not in the mood to edit photos and I need to do some organizing, I come in here. And I'll either trash these by hitting X or I'll hit 3 to send them to ready to process. So ready to process is the most important folder in your Lightroom catalog. And if you have a full head of creativity, if you want to come and do creative work, there's nothing worse than sitting down to a bunch of unorganized files of images that you may or may not like. It's just not a good thing for your brain. So my goal here is to have a set of files that are already organized that say, hey, I'm ready for you to edit. Come on in and start editing. So if we scroll down through these, you can see that they're all different seasons, all different landscapes, all different trips. And by going down through these, I can definitely find something that I'm interested in processing. So let's pick a few of these. I'll normally pick 2 or 3 at a time. So let's say that I'd like to actually go through and edit this one. I'll hit 4. That will remove it from the ready to process and send it to the in work folder. And I'm doing all this with Smart Collections. So you can Google Smart Collections, learn how that works. So let's say I like that one. Let's say I also like this one. I'll just hit 4. Goes to in work. And then let's say I want to edit this one as well. So I'd hit 4. And you notice this number is going down, this number is going up. So the nice thing about Smart Collections is that you're not going to have any duplicate files. It's not actually moving the raw files around on your computer. It's just changing the metadata. So you're not actually moving your files, which keeps the chance of file corruption or damage a lot lower. So let's say I have these files that I'm ready to work. If I want to work them, I can just hit develop. I'm not actually going through the full editing process in Lightroom. I'm more of just doing some basic color balance. So let's say I just do some basic color balance, light adjustments, whatever I want to do. I'm just getting the idea for where I want to take the image, not the full edit. So I could just do the same with this one or whatever else you want. I'll normally just get the basic adjustments for each of these until they look about where I want to edit them in Photoshop. And at this point, I'm just going to select all of them by hitting Command A, and I'm going to export them. So we're going to leave Lightroom and we're going to enter Photoshop at this point. Now, I never like to actually touch or edit my original RAW files. I always want them to stay exactly in place so I don't have to worry about losing them. So instead of opening them right into Photoshop by going Edit in Photoshop, I actually just make a duplicate copy of them into Photoshop, and then I can delete that duplicate copy at the end. And then I have my original file and my final portfolio image with no kind of junk or garbage in between. So I'll just right click here and I'm going to go to export, and I export these as the original file, and I just choose a file destination which is called raw in work 5. So it's the 5 designates right after my in work right there. So I'll just export all these, and that's just a preset for me. So now I'll jump out of Lightroom. We can close this down, we can quit it for now, and I'll open Adobe Bridge. So for the Photoshop part of my workflow, I like to split it up into 3 separate folders. The first folder is raw in work, and that's the folder that we just exported the raw files from Lightroom to. So you'll notice if I click on this within Bridge, these 3 files exist. Now these aren't the original raw files, but they are duplicates of the original raw file with all the Lightroom adjustments. So within Photoshop, I have 3 steps. I have raw in work, so that means in this file are just raw files that I can open up and start the actual Photoshop process. So the first step in Photoshop is to double click one of these files. I'll just pick this one, or we can do this one, either one. And I'll normally have 5 to 10 raw files in that raw in work folder that I can select from, depending on my creative mood. And then let's say we fully process this. I'm not going to say this is completely done as I usually would, but let's just quickly process it. Say it's something like that. And this is a twilight image, so it's a little bit dark. But then I'm just going to open this raw file, and this is Adobe Camera Raw. It looks just like Lightroom, but it's laid out just slightly differently. Same exact processing engine. So I'll just open this directly into Photoshop. And all it did is read that raw format, and it opened it right into Photoshop here for me. So now I'm ready to go ahead and make any adjustments I'd like to make. Like I could do a bunch of layer mask adjustments. I won't actually make them, but we'll just show them. So let's pretend I've been working on this file for, I don't know, an hour or so, and I'm ready to stop for now, but I'm not completely done with the file. All I have to do is hit save, and I have this set up so that this file, which is now going to be a PSD or large document format. Photoshop is a PSD file. Large document format is the same thing. It just holds larger file sizes. So I always just go with large document format. Include layers and embed color profile. So this is just going to save in the next step of my processing, and that's called PS in work. And you'll see that 6, which is just the next step of my workflow. And I'll hit save here. Now that already exists because I've done it earlier. But it's just going to save. And if we jump back to Bridge here, remember, I'm done editing this photo for the day, so once it saves, it's just going to close out. If we jump back to Bridge, we're going to see that that initial raw file exists here, but that's not the updated file. The updated file is actually right down here because we just saved it, remember? So it's just going to sit here in my PS in work folder. So this is the initial raw file with adjustments, with layers, and everything else, and it's going to show real time in Bridge what it actually looks like. So as now for these intermediary raw files, I just go ahead and delete them. Those were just my fail-safe to make sure I didn't save back to my original Lightroom catalog file location or delete my original raw files within Lightroom. And really it's one less step in the end because you don't have to go back into Lightroom and reorganize all of your images. So now whenever I have creative work, or when I'm feeling really creative and I want to work in Photoshop, but I don't want to start with an initial raw file, I have all these files that are saved in this folder that are currently PS in work, meaning Photoshop in work, that I can choose from. And out of all these different landscapes and different textures or different photo ideas, I can pick something I'm currently in the creative mood to work on. So that's a really nice option. And you'll notice that if I open any of these, we can pick any of them, but let's just select, I don't know, we can select this mountain scene. So let's say that I open this one, and you can see that I've done a lot of adjustments to this photo already. I've still not determined that it's completely done, but I've probably come back to it 3 or 4 times over the period of 2 to 3 weeks to a month, and done slight new edits on it. Things that I didn't really see before, but then after working on it for a while, without rushing, I noticed that I wanted to add to the photo. So let's pretend that I'm completely done editing this photo. I've determined that it's ready for my portfolio and I don't want to edit it anymore. The easy part about that is that, I'm not going to hit save here, but that if I was looking through images and I decided one was ready to go to the portfolio, I just grab it here and I drag it to complete holding, which is my step number 7. So by dragging it there, you can see that there's some other images in here as well, but it's just going to populate down here in the timeline hierarchy. So why I have this complete holding folder. After I'm done editing an image, I feel that I need at least 1 to 2 weeks to get away from it and kind of air it out a little bit to make sure I still really like all the adjustments that I made for it. So when I'm looking at an image that I just got done editing, it's very hard for me to know if I really like it or not. There's probably a lot of things that I'm going to miss or errors that I made during the editing process. But by sitting in this complete holding folder for 2 or 3 weeks, if I still like the image when I come back and revisit it, I'm sure that I actually like it. So let's say it's the end of the month and I like to upload about 20 new images each month to my portfolio. So let's say that I'm looking through this complete holding folder and I determine that there's some images that I want to upload. I could just select this one, and I normally do a bunch of these at a time, but I'll just grab a few for the sake of this tutorial. And I'll just drag these to portfolio, upload to TIFF. So now that I have all these files in here, I can hit Command A or Control A on a PC and select them all. And you can do this with as many files as you'd like. I just go up here to Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. And what the image processor will do is it'll allow you to transfer all of these from a PSD or a large document format and save them as TIFF. So I would just select images to process. I just did all 3 of those. And then you can save in the same location as you want. Or for me, I do another location, which is my TIFF files. And then all you have to do is do save as TIFF. So this will throw away all your layers, but knowing that I just sat on them for 2 weeks and then I'm completely done with them, I don't have a need to keep all those layers. I can throw them out. If I wanted to come back and adjust the photo later, I would just completely reprocess it. If I click run here, all it's going to do is process all of those and then save them as TIFF. And they'll just be all waiting for me in my TIFF Lightroom ready. So I call it Lightroom ready because I also have a different Lightroom catalog where I hold my portfolio images. So as you can see here, we have my initial raw file that came in here. I deleted those, and then you just drag the photos throughout this hierarchy until you get to the end. So that way I don't have any clutter or mess in my photo editing workflow. At the end, when I'm all done, I'll have my final TIFF files, my portfolio images, and then I'll have my initial raw files that are sitting back in Lightroom. No more, no less. So now let's say that all of those portfolio images from this previous folder had exported, and I just exported one for ease of use, but normally I would have 18 to 20 new TIFF files in here waiting, and remember they're compressed down to a smaller size now. They have no layers, so it's much easier to work with. And I'm just going to grab this. I would usually grab all of them, and I just drag it onto my Lightroom icon. You can always use the import function within Lightroom as well. So just like I had uploaded raw files in the beginning, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to use the import preset now, portfolio import. So this will just add some different metadata to it, and it also adds it to a collection called finished photo portfolio and unpublished. So within that unpublished folder, I have my 18 to 20 new images that are going to go into my portfolio, and I'm going to web sharpen them and prepare them to go online from there. And that's a different part of my workflow that I'll cover in a future tutorial. So at that point, I would just hit import, and this would just do all of that for me. So import presets are great to have set up. So at that point, I have all of my finished photos, and they're in this complete photo portfolio. With the unpublished ones, I know that I have to web sharpen them and upload them. So that's just my way of staying in line, staying organized, and staying creative. So hopefully through watching this, you guys got some good tips about my photography workflow This didn't include all the steps of my workflow, but some of the really important ones that I felt were actionable and that could help you out. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Have a good one, and thanks for watching. See you guys.